everyone, and welcome back to a brand new edition of Daily to Dynasty, your one-stop shop for all things fantasy football. I am your host, Craig Orbanoff, joined by Rich Wilhelm, John Hazlett, and Marcus Taylor, and you can find all of our Twitter information on the screen, but for those of you listening podcast, I will also read it. You can follow the show at Daily to Dynasty. You can follow myself at Seagorbs94. You can follow Rich at Coda522. You can follow John at John with an H, John, Hazlett475, and Marcus at EMTaylor29, which, as we learned last week, was just a random letter because M. Taylor was already taken. So
EM equals M.
Yeah, M equals works. M. So EMTaylor29, MTaylor29. So that's how you can follow this show on Twitter. If you want to get involved with this program a little bit more, you can head on over to anchor.fm/daily2dynasty. There we have a couple of different options for you to get involved with the show, including leaving us a voicemail. Just head on over, leave us a voicemail, and we'll include you in our next program and answer your questions live on this show. Wherever you're listening to this program, whether that's on YouTube or via podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever, please like and subscribe and leave a 5-star rating. It helps the show out immensely and gives us a little bit of feedback on what you like and what you don't like. It's only going to make the show better. So go ahead and do that. Like, subscribe, 5-star rating, and leave a comment down in the player below if you're watching this thing on YouTube. A little bit more order of business here, guys. If you love underdog stories, and if you're a sports fan, odds are you are one, you're going to love our friends at the Underdog newsletter. Every week they sift through hundreds of articles, videos, and podcasts, interviews, and then every Tuesday morning they send out a bite-sized rundown of only the best stories you can find all in one place. You can go ahead and subscribe to the newsletter at jokermag.com/newsletter. The URL is down there on the screen, and it's also down in the description below. And of course, you can follow them at JokerMagHQ. So guys, that's pretty much all of the business up front. How's everybody's week been?
Been great.
Good.
Plugging along.
It's been a good one. We've seen some sports return. Baseball is back. The NBA has returned actually at the time of recording. The Pelicans are up 82-75 against the Jazz, and we are waiting for LeBron James to take on the Clippers. I don't care about anyone else on the Lakers. It's just LeBron James. It's a bit of a fabrication of the truth. But either way, we're going to try and keep this show short, sweet, and to the point so we can go ahead and watch LeBron take on the Clippers a little bit later on, LeBron versus Kawhi. But this has been a very big week around the NFL, and first and foremost is the trade heard around the world, right? And that's because the guy behind it has one of the biggest mouths in the NFL. Jamal Adams traded from the New York Jets to the Seattle Seahawks. Rich, why don't you take us through the particulars of the trade and your kind of initial reaction?
Well, my initial reaction is I thought it was Christmas. I'm wearing the shirt just, to be ironic. So, Jamal Adams goes to Seattle. Jets get 2 first-round picks, a 4th-round pick, and Bradley McDougald, who is no slouch himself, and they give Seattle Jamal Adams in a 3rd. So for me, I mean, it was a no-brainer for the Jets. Obviously this marriage has turned sour for both sides. He came out against the general manager, he came out against the coach, he came out against the owner. He was doing everything he possibly could to make himself look bad in the Jets organization and for the fans. And then, the trade happened and everyone united under the Jet fandom. And it kind of feels like, it's a bad girlfriend that's just out the door. You could be waking up to a 10 every single day, but if she has morning breath for 24 hours of the day, it's still not someone you want to be around, And I feel that's what it was. It just went sour. So, it's just a weight off of everyone's shoulders, I feel like. The team can move forward now. No players have really come forward in Jamal's defense when he got traded. You just heard Le'Veon Bell kind of go the opposite way when it comes to Jamal. He actually said that you have all these guys hooting and hollering trying to get you here, and then they leave, and it's weird. And they went back and forth, which I thought was very funny. But yeah, I mean, it's just something that I'm happy it happened. I kind of wanted him to rot on the bench, but looking at it now, seeing how they have 2 first-round picks and, cap space, they don't have to worry about extending him. I mean, it's good all the way around. And John, I mean, I don't know if you have the psychic abilities, but ever since he got drafted, Jamal Adams could literally, after the game, say, "Oh, it was a great game," and John would be like, "That guy talks too much," and we would all be like, "No, he's making all these plays." And then, all these years later, I mean, he hit the nail on the head with how he felt. So I just feel like it's a great thing for the Jets organization. Obviously, they're not one strong safety away from the Super Bowl. Those 4 first-round picks in 2 years, that's going to finally build the base for this franchise. So for me, I'm happy. It's Christmas in July, and let's move forward to the season.
Yeah, I think you hit all the nails on the head. They replace him with a very talented safety, and I just think they got a ton of value in draft capital. And this is a young team; they need a lot of pieces, but I think they're kind of in a position now where they can acquire all those young pieces. They're gonna have to pay Sam at some point. This kind of puts them in a position to do so and really build a nice young nucleus of players. John, I want you to kind of dive into a little bit about just how Jamal handled this whole situation, how he was calling players in Dallas to try and get them to initiate a trade, and then how he acted so shocked when they were shopping him. I mean, it just really went about this in a crazy way. And I think no person better than you is suited to tell me all the things that Jamal Adams did wrong here. So please take it away.
Jamal Adams screwed himself, really. So the first day he opened his mouth, and me and Rich used to joke about it. He used to tell me I was too hard on him, but I'm telling you, I knew from day one. And taking nothing away from Jamal on the field, I love watching the guy play. He's more to me than just a safety, and I feel like he deserves to get paid eventually. But off the field, this guy is just all I wanted to do was tell him to shut up all the time, for his own good most of the time, not just for the team, But at the end of the day, the haul we got for him, I'm happy with, even though we really don't know what this next draft is going to look like. Is there going to be a college football season? It's starting to feel like there's not going to be. So really, I think it's for this year, for the first year, it's like throwing a dart at a dartboard and hoping you get something. So I kind of, when I started to really analyze and think about this trade, that's one of the things that, if I'm looking at positives and negatives, that's a negative to me. It's just we don't know. We don't know what's happening with this draft. So, but as far as what we got for him, yeah, I mean, we got more than the Texans got for Hopkins. We got more than, you got to go back to almost. I was doing this the other day. I had some spare time. The last haul of this nature was Jay Cutler, who's a quarterback. Okay, it's Denver to Chicago. You're going back quite some time, and that's a quarterback. We got a haul that you would get for a starting quarterback. That's a lot in a safety. And I think the fact that Seattle is willing to pay that tells you exactly what they think of Jamal. And he's going to go there and help that team. Let's be honest. I mean, that team's going to make the playoffs. That team's going to probably win a couple games in the playoffs. And they, if you told me right now they're going to be in the Super Bowl, I'd have a hard time not believing you. That's a good team. That's a good franchise. As to get a player of his caliber, they did a really nice job. And those picks are going to be 25 plus, both of them. So still things you could do with those picks, but at the end of the day, I'm happy he's gone. I don't have to listen to him anymore. The positives are you do have that haul that you got, and like Rich said, you don't have to worry about giving a safety $20 million because I think that's what that guy's going to get. And you kind of put your eggs in the Sam Darnold basket for the next extension. And I'm really happy with the way Joe Douglas handled this entire thing, and which is as poorly as Jamal handled it is as good as Joe Douglas handled it. And as a Jet fan and as a football fan, those are the things that I see when I look at the trade.
Yeah, I think there was some great leadership from Douglas. I think you make an interesting point, right? We don't know what the college football season is going to hold. We don't know what the NFL season is going to hold. It's an interesting point you bring up. no one really knows what's going to happen with all of that. But at the end of the day, you're getting 2 first-rounders. Granted, they will be later first-rounders, but I think it should be pretty good. Now, Marcus, another kind of interesting thing that came out of this whole situation was Le'Veon Bell's reaction. Le'Veon Bell kind of made a point of saying, guys do all this hooting and hollering, right, to get you to come here, and then they disappear. Le'Veon didn't have the best season last year, but he had a pretty good season. Do you think this is going to kind of maybe add a little bit of fire to him as a running back? Like, just how this whole situation unfolded now that Jamal's gone? Maybe this is an addition by subtraction, and it'll give some motivation to a player like Le'Veon Bell, who's a veteran, who staked a lot to come here, made his own, media circus in his free agency, right? Do you think it'll have an impact that way?
Oh, definitely. It's like Rich said, when Jamal Adams got traded, a lot of players didn't come out and say anything about it other than him. So it seems like now that he's gone, it can most likely bring the locker room closer together now that he's gone. Like Rich said, the way he went about the trade, calling players in Dallas, calling out the coach, the GM, the owner, that distraction is gone. I think it's going to bring the team closer together. I think Le'Veon is going to be more motivated than he already was, just to show that playing for the Jets is not a bad thing and that the team can overcome any distraction. And now that he's gone, they're going to show him, what he's missing out on. So I definitely think it's going to be addition by subtraction by him getting traded to Seattle.
And, one last kind of interesting nugget that came out of this trade, Jadeveon Clowney has now come out and said that he's interested in playing for the New York Jets. It's no secret the New York Jets have needed a pass rusher for the longest time. I think, and this will just kind of be open forum, do we think that the Jets management has kind of gained some respect maybe amongst veterans around the NFL, right, amongst players, showing this is no longer not your father's Jets, right? They're taking this stuff seriously now. They're looking to win and, play good football. And might we be entering a new era where the Jets might actually be a viable free agency option with this leadership in place? Or is this all way too early to speculate?
I mean, for me, it's Joe Douglas versus Adam Gase. Who are you going to pick as a player? Obviously there's still that stigma with Adam Gase, with all the players in Miami, and obviously players talk. I think it's winning in spite of Adam Gase at this point, and if they could succeed under Adam Gase, despite how he might operate, I think this is going to be a good landing place for free agents. I mean, with Bradley McDougald coming here immediately and trying to recruit his guys, I mean, I'm all for it. He already seems to have a good relationship with Marcus May, who, you thought Marcus May might be the player that would side with Jamal. And the first thing he says is, we're going to get along great. So, I mean, I think it was a lot of window dressing when it came to everything with Jamal Adams. I think he hyped himself up. He thought everyone was going to support him, and then it just crumbled around him. And also, he's the one that was calling people in Dallas, was making the phone calls. So it was this psychological babble the entire time. I hope Jadeveon Clowney comes to the Jets. I mean, they need a pass rusher. They haven't had one since John Abraham, so it would be nice. But I don't think so yet. Maybe soon. Hopefully soon.
Listen, if the Jets end up landing Clowney after all this, I don't know where Joe Douglas lives, but I'm gonna send him a big bouquet of flowers. That's like, and I'm gonna tell you, I'm not the biggest Clowney guy, honestly, but I think if you can add him on top of that, I think that would say a lot for the handful of negative that's come out of the Jamal thing. I have a couple friends that are Jet fans, and right away, where I'm sure just like you guys, when the news comes down, everyone's texting each other, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? And I was surprised how many people were negative towards it with me that are good Jet fans, and at the end of the day, it's a player that you drafted the 6th overall pick. You want him to do well on the field. He's a good player. Your franchise doesn't get better when you trade away your best player. It just doesn't. But I think it sets a tone here, and I really I don't know if you guys saw what Bart Scott said this week. He said, "Hey, this is a good thing. This is the turning point of the organization. I just pray that he's correct. That's all."
Yeah, to go along with that, I definitely think this is a turning point. I think this could set them up to be a free agency destination. It's going to show that they're a competent organization. See the haul that they got. The haul is amazing. 2 first-round picks is great for a safety. It's going to show that Joe Douglas is in control. He's steering the ship in the right direction. I think free agents are going to respect the competency of an organization, and they may choose to come to the Jets to, sign a long-term contract.
Yeah, I personally feel this is a turning point for the organization. I can't remember the last time they've made such a smart football move. If they can get a Clowney out of it, John, I'm with you. I'm not the biggest Clowney fan in the world, but he's a good player. He's a good edge rusher, and he's definitely an upgrade over anyone on the Jets roster. So I hope this is a turning point. We'll find out if it's a turning point. We'll just kind of have to wait and see. But ultimately, I would view this as a win for the Jets on the trade. Do you guys kind of feel that they've won this trade as well, or do you think both sides got some victory here?
I don't think it's close. I mean, and I'm not trying to be biased, but I mean, this seems so one-sided for the Jets. I mean, obviously Jamal Adams, he could be a generational talent, but at the end of the day, he's at a position where it's not the difference in winning games. I mean, look at him on the Jets. He is the best strong safety in the league, but the Jets, they win 6-7 games a year with him. So, I mean, if he was a quarterback and we did this, I would be pissed, obviously, because you just traded away your franchise quarterback. It's like trading away Patrick Mahomes or, Lamar Jackson at that point. But at his position,
who needs him? Who needs him,
right? Who needs him? But his position, I think this is definitely a home run for the Jets. And it's just, you're not going to pay him $20 million after all the stuff he just did within the organization. So I'm surprised they got as much as they did, honestly.
I love the haul. Like I said, I can't tell you who wins the trade yet. I got to see what comes of those picks at least next year. I got to see who we get there. Listen, we're not drafting Jamal in those picks. That's just, you're not getting a guy of that caliber. So I got to make sure the three extra guys we have, which by the way may turn into some extra draft picks with Joe Douglas. It gives them some room to maneuver and wheel and deal. So I don't think we could actually grade it yet, although on paper, yeah, it looks like the Jets are winning this thing. But let's revisit this a year from now and then 2 years from now and see where we're actually at that point.
Yeah, I'm with John. It's hard to say who's a winner right now from the Jets' perspective because you don't know if these picks are going to turn into studs or bust. We just have to wait to see what those picks become. And for Seattle, they get immediate help with Jamal Adams. He's going to come in and be ready to play. He's versatile. And they were 26 against the pass, so they definitely need him to come in and help out right away. But overall, it's hard to tell because you don't know what the Jets will become with those 3 picks that they acquired.
Well, I mean, what I'm saying is you get the first round picks now for a player that almost certainly wasn't going to sign an extension with the team. So, I mean, for me, it was just a wait and see with what Jamal was going to do in those 2 years he had left on his contract before he absolutely blew everything up. So that's why I think the Jets won the trade, because you get the most value now. I mean, obviously we can draft, duds next year and the year after that. But, for me, I just think it's a win immediately.
Well, let's not forget either, he's got 2 years on his contract, and you could franchise him for a few years too. I mean, you could have had him for 4 years or 5 years if you really wanted to stretch it out. I wouldn't have been a fan of doing that because at that point you're way overpaying a guy. But so again, yeah, on paper, I Jets win the trade, but I can't give you a full we win until the end.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you never know how these things are going to go. There's been some massive trades in the NFL involving a lot of draft picks, and a lot of the times nothing really comes of it. I mean, look at the formerly Washington Redskins when they traded up to get RG3, right? And the Rams got all those draft picks and basically drafted nothing but busts. There's the famous Mike Ditka trade, right? He traded away his whole draft, and nothing came of those draft picks either. So you never really know how these whole things are going to go. But on paper, I gotta say the Jets won this trade. All right, guys, let's move on to something with a little bit of more fantasy impact this season, and that is the opt-outs. As of the airing of this show, August 1st was the deadline to opt out of the NFL season, right? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, actually, it's a week from when they put the agreement in, which was actually yesterday. So there's another 6 days from when we're recording this show. So it could go up.
So we could have a few more. As of now, this is the list. There's 31 players. I'm going to breeze through them, and then we'll just kind of talk about it in general. Starting, and this is in no particular order. Rich, you compiled this, but...
I tried to do it as they were opting out, but, for next week, I'll put them team by team just so it's easier.
Gotcha. So approximately by when they opted out, Patriots linebacker Dante Hightower, Patriots right tackle Marcus Cannon, Chiefs guard Laurent Duvernay Tardif. Wow, these are some names, man. Ravens wide receiver DeAnthony Thomas, Patriots running back Brandon Bolden, Patriots fullback Danny Vitale. I'm sensing a pattern, guys. A lot of fellas in New England do not want to play this season. Seahawks guard Chance Warmack, Cowboys cornerback Maurice Kennedy. Broncos defensive tackle Kyle Pecco, Ravens offensive tackle Andre Smith, Patriots offensive lineman Najee Torin, Washington, the formerly Redskins. This is hard to the Washington football team. The Washington. I don't know. I don't like it. But Caleb Brantley didn't like it either, so he's not playing this season. Texans defensive tackle Eddie Vanderdoes, Cowboys wide receiver Stephen Guidry.
He was an undrafted free agent. It's fine.
Yeah, it's okay. He doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Bears defensive tackle Eddie Goldman, Saints tight end Cole Wick, Titans offensive lineman Anthony McKinney, Patriots safety Patrick Chung, Bills defensive tackle Star Latuli. I used to know how to say that at one point, not anymore. Vikings nose tackle Michael Pierce, Eagles wide receiver Marquise Goodwin, Jets offensive lineman Leo K. I'm not even going to bother with his last name. Leo K. Kolamatangi, I think.
That was pretty good.
He's a free agent right now. Larry Warford opting out. Packers wide receiver Devin Funchess. That's a big one to me. And we'll continue to talk about that in a little bit. Browns guard Drew Forbes. Browns offensive tackle Drake Dorbeck. Chiefs running back Damian Williams, another big one in terms of fantasy. Panthers linebacker Jordan Mack. Saints tight end Jason Vanderland. Giants offensive tackle Nate Scholder, another big one, but not necessarily for fantasy. And Lions defensive tackle John Atkins. As of July 30th, 8:51 p.m. That's when we're recording this show. That is the as of. So, guys, a lot of names on that list. I think there will probably be a few more. Some just kind of like top line observations. A lot of the big guys, right? The guys who play in the trenches, are opting out, and I think that makes sense, right? Like, they're closer to people on every single play. It's harder to kind of avoid and keep your distance. You know, you're constantly being exposed. And not a ton of skill positions and not a ton of top-tier guys, but a handful that stuck out to me, and we'll start with Packers wide receiver Devin Funchess. He's a bigger wide receiver, right? He gets his targets. He gets his touchdowns. I think he is a good weapon for Aaron Rodgers. Someone I likely would have been interested in drafting this coming year, and he is opting out. What would you guys say to someone who was targeting Devin Funchess this year in their fantasy draft?
I would say you're probably going to lose your fantasy draft. I don't think he was going to go drafted. I mean, just based on, obviously he didn't play last year. There's not a lot of chemistry with him and Rodgers. Plus, I feel like if I'm going to go after someone not named Davante Adams as far as that receiver core goes, I'm going Lazard. I think he had a really good connection with Lazard last year. So I don't think Funchess opting out is going to be that huge for the Packers. I think, they're based on plug-in and play in their wide receivers right now. You look at Valdez-Scantling, Lazard, Davante Adams. Plus, they have the running backs. They have, obviously they have the tandem now. So for me, Funchess, I don't know. He's looking out for his health, but for me, he wasn't really a fantasy option per se, at least this year.
I thought he had some late round value. I mean, this guy was a solid wide receiver too a few seasons ago. I think in a Green Bay he had some late round value. But let's talk about, and this is one of Rich's loves here, Damian Williams. I think that's the one Rich feels really strongly about, and is really disappointed. But I'll let him sit and listen to Marcus and John first before he gets to give his 2 cents. So, guys, what are your just kind of overall thoughts there, and what would your fantasy advice be?
My fantasy advice is Clyde Edwards-Helaire. That's what my fantasy advice is. That guy becomes a first-round pick now, in my opinion. He's going to get the volume, he's going to get the carries, and I don't like taking rookies in the first round in fantasy, but I might make the exception in this case.
Yeah, same. It's a high-powered offense, dynamic. I mean, they can score in a blink of an eye. I mean, remember them in the playoffs here? They were just scoring touchdowns like it was Madden on rookie mode or something. He's going to get the opportunity. He's going to get the volume. He's going to put up points. I mean, you get touches in his offense, you're going to put up points. So, yeah, he's definitely a first-round draft pick now that Damian Williams is opting out.
Yeah, and, Damian Williams was Clyde Edwards-Helaire just a few seasons ago, right? When with the Hunt situation, right? And no one knew who Damian Williams was, and he stepped right in, and he was completely fine, right? And he became fantasy gold. And now Williams is opting out, and Helaire is going to step in. And the thing with that offense is you have to defend Mahomes first. You have to try and make them beat you by running the football. So there's going to be open lanes. There's going to be, it's going to be an easier time running the football against when you are the Kansas City Chiefs because of the weapon that you have in Patrick Mahomes. So, Rich, now I'll turn it over to you because this is your baby. Take it away.
Well, I mean, Damian Williams is on my Dynasty team, and he definitely earned his keep on my Dynasty team. You look at Damian Williams in the playoffs last year, you look at him in the Super Bowl, that is a big player to lose. I think he's not someone that's often talked about, especially since Clyde Edwards-Helaire was drafted. It seemed like he was yesterday's news, and now he is. I don't think that he's going to get that starting job back when he comes back next year. I think he's going to be a trade target. I mean, because like you guys said, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to be a first-round pick, and in Dynasty, he's going to be the first pick. There is no other pick this year in Dynasty. He's the guy, and he's going to put up a ton of volume. There's Darwin Thompson behind him and Darrell Williams, but I think that it's going to be the Clyde Edwards-Helaire show. I mean, he's going to be that bell cow that they were looking for. He has all the intangibles, and he is definitely a late first-round pick in, I think, all formats right now. But Damian Williams, it's hard for me because now I feel like I think I have to cut him in Dynasty, just speaking out loud, because I don't know where he's going to be next year. And maybe I keep someone like, Lazard, like I said before about on the Packers. Since Funchess is out, insert Lazard, take out Williams. It's not what I wanted, but, it's a nice secondary plan.
Is that something we all kind of think is a smart move for Rich? Should he be getting rid of Damian Williams in his Dynasty League, or does he have value holding on to next season? I know he's not going to play this year, but in a Dynasty League, right, you can stash one or two guys and who might not play this season, but might have some value down the road. I kind of think you're better off cutting him. Running backs are a bit of a dime a dozen. There's going to be some, new guy next year who's going to be all the rage. I don't think he's necessarily worth staying on your roster, but it's kind of a shame because he was a very talented player during his time as a Kansas City Chief, and he probably will continue to be a talented player whenever life goes back to normal. But this is Dynasty leagues. We don't have time to wait for stuff to go back to normal.
Well, I'm in that league with Rich, so I'll plead the fifth on this one.
So is Marcus.
Oh, that's right. Marcus is joining us too.
Yeah.
I just played my hand there, guys. But
that's right.
Yeah, I was looking at it last night. I just, I have good keepers, but it's going to be hard to keep him in that league because there's a lot of competitive teams. I mean, both of your teams are highly competitive. Marcus, for example, has Mahomes in 8 other crazy players in the team that he took over. But we'll see. I might change my mind. Who knows?
Well, stay tuned to find out. Drop a comment in the YouTube player below. Fire away on Twitter. Let Rich know what he should do with Damian Williams in his Dynasty League, and we'll update you on this situation. Guys, do you guys just have any overall thoughts on this list of players? Definitely a lot of New England Patriots have opted out. We talked about the landscape of the AFC East last week, and I think this will kind of continue to shift that landscape as well. But Marcus, we'll start with you. Just kind of some overall thoughts on this list of players who have opted out.
I'll say something about Marquise Goodwin for the Eagles. They definitely need receiver help, and him opting out doesn't help them very much. Father Time seemed to have caught up with Deshaun Jackson and Alshon Jeffrey. Now they're pretty thin unless those two guys have bounce-back seasons. I mean, you still got the 2 tight ends. You got Miles Sanders, Carson Wentz under center. But without this young speedy receiver, and you got, a second-year player in Whiteside, 2 injuries to 2 veteran players, you can have a bigger impact than intended. And this can also have a big impact on Miles Sanders for his fantasy value. You might rely on him a lot more for his production since Goodwin is no longer playing this season.
John, any overall thoughts?
Yeah, again, the one Marcus just threw out at you is the one I was thinking. But I'll give you one kind of off the radar is Nate Solder, because I think that's an impact on the Giants. I think that's an impact on Saquon. Although he's not the same guy who played in New England a few years ago, he's still a big piece there. And I think they were looking to have him anchor the one side with their rookie on the other one this year. So I think that's a blow to the Giants.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the Giants for a long time had been working on that offensive line to try and get some kind of regular production out of them, and it's been tough sledding. I think they finally had kind of put together a nice nucleus of players on that line, and now with Soldier opting out, it's certainly going to be difficult for Saquon. It's going to be difficult for Danny Dimes, right? It's just going to be a little bit harder, I think, for that offense to get going without that solid, tackle presence that Soldier provided. Rich, do you have any other kind of overall thoughts on this list of players who have opted out, or maybe if we can expect any more players to opt out?
I mean, I think it's just the blood pack between the Patriots that they all chose to have a meeting, and Bill Belichick's like, yeah, you don't want to play this year. We need the cap space. Trevor Lawrence next year, he's looking pretty good. Don't you want Trevor Lawrence? And they were like, all right. No, I'm just kidding. But, no, I mean, I think it's going to – I don't want to sound pretentious here, but I think, honestly, this list, the way it came out, it was kind of best-case scenario. I thought it was going to be a lot more than what it was. There are a lot of players on this list, but there are not a ton of starters on this list. I mean, there's a lot of depth players on here. Obviously, outside of the Patriots, it's not a huge hit. The Chiefs obviously losing their starting guard, that's big. But then they signed Kelechi Osemele, who was a Pro Bowl starter, except on the Jets, because when you go to the Jets, you don't play in the Pro Bowl anymore. But yeah, I mean, obviously the list can grow. The COVID-19 list is growing, but again, that's a temporary list. You come right back when you're negative. I think the show is going to go on. If the Marlins can get decimated and baseball continues, I think NFL is going to truck on anywhere they can. So I think it's best case scenario, at least at this point in late July.
And I was just going to say, I was going to add in back to the Eagles. A fantasy option may be Jalen Reagor, their rookie wide receiver. He can step in and pick up some of those receptions. He can be a good stash in the Dynasty.
Just forget his name when we draft, though. Pretend he doesn't exist.
Absolutely. Well, guys, before we close this one up, like I said at the beginning, this is going to be a shorter show. Not a ton to talk about in the NFL this week, but some kind of significant news in Jamal Adams and some of these players opting out. Do you have anything else you'd like to add?
No, I'm just happy. I'm happy with the trade. Obviously, we'll have to see how it goes, but I'm excited for fantasy season too. Now that things are kind of taking shape, you can kind of draft at any time now because there is no preseason. So this is fantasy football season for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in maybe not next week, but the week after, we'll be doing some kind of live mock draft on this show. to kind of help people get a little warmed up and help warm myself up for this upcoming fantasy football season. I can always use a good tune-up mock draft or two that's a little bit higher stakes than just me sitting on my phone on the toilet mock drafting, But yeah, it's going to be fun, guys. The sports are starting to come back. I think, we're starting to get a clearer picture on what the NFL is going to look like and who's going to be available. And it's officially fantasy football season, for which we're very excited on this show. All right, guys, I want to thank you so much for watching this week and every week, or listening via podcast. However you're listening to this thing, thank you for doing so. Like and subscribe on whatever platform you choose. Give us a nice rating and leave us some feedback if you want us to talk about something on a later show. If you have a specific question, you can always head on over to alpha.fm/daily to Dynasty and leave us a voicemail. We'll feature you on next week's program. And, kind of interact with your question live on the show, which would be a lot of fun. Again, that link, anchor.fm/daily to Dynasty. That link is also in the description of wherever you are listening to this show. If you want to follow us on social media, you can head on over to Twitter and follow this show at Daily to Dynasty. You can follow myself at Seagorps94. You can follow Rich at Coda522. You can follow John at John Hazlett475, and you can follow Marcus at EMTaylor29. But if you just say it, it's M Taylor. But
there
it's
you go.
EMTaylor29 on Twitter. And lastly, guys, if you are a fan of Underdog Sports Stories, and if you're a sports fan, odds are you are a fan of Underdog Stories. Head on over to our friends at the Underdog newsletter. Every week they sift through hundreds of articles, videos, and podcast interviews. And then every Tuesday morning they send out a bite-sized rundown of only the best stories you can find all in one place. You can, of course, subscribe to the newsletter at jokermag.com/newsletter. And you can follow them on Twitter at JokerMagHQ. And eventually this graphic will update and say JokerMagHQ. All right, guys, that is going to do it for this show. Thank you so much for watching, listening, wherever you're doing so. For Rich, Marcus, and John, I'm Craig, and we'll see you guys next week on Daily to Dynasty.